So my video today is very different. I don't know how different it will be. It might be something that has themes surrounding other topics that we've discussed, but I think this is the formula to actually change the gaming industry. There's no other way that I can see it happen. And that is that we as gamers actually taking the entirety of gaming into our own hands. That is from the process of production all the way to publishing, pretty much us making our own games. Because right now in today's industry, what I see is there's just a lot of us sitting here talking about how video games are not meeting our expectations, when in reality, we actually have what it takes to make the changes that we need, but we're not taking advantage of it. What am I talking about? Like, why is this topic of discussion something that is at the forefront of my thought process? Well, I think Gotham Knights and its release and its reveal kind of really opened up the conversation a little bit more for me. And seeing the way gamers were all over the place kind of talking about this game, pretty much providing their own thoughts and feedback, really did make me come in to say, you know what, I think I got to talk to people about rethinking how we approach these video games. What's also really interesting is seeing the way Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League disappointed fans. This also just added on top of it because fans were expecting one thing. They were basically, coming in saying maybe we're going to get a game that looked like the iconic Arkham games, but instead, when the game got revealed, they realized that they were getting a game that seemed to be corporate mandated and not necessarily a satisfying proposition for a lot of people. So, with all of these disappointments right in front of us, or whatever you want to call them, or unsatisfactory propositions in terms of video games, depending on which one you're a team of or which one you're looking forward to, I think the conversation needs to come into perspective where, as gamers, we start to expose ourselves to what exactly it means to make a video game, how exactly we can, and how we can actually get the job done in today's day and age. Because again, like I said, the tools, the avenues, and all are quite ready for us to be able to take advantage of. Now, one of my audience members said something. They said something about, Gotham Knights. They said the developers of Gotham Knights are incompetent. I don't like that categorization, honestly, because I've been spending my time learning game development, and this is a far from, that's not even something that should be entertained, but that's because I think they're making the comment from the place that they don't really know how video games are made. If they did, they would never mention that. So I decided I was going to set up a challenge. I said, you know what? If you think the developers of Warner Bros. Games Montreal are incompetent, I have a challenge for you. They haven't taken me up on this challenge yet, but I'm waiting for you, bro. I think you need to take me up on this challenge because I think it's really going to open your eyes to a lot of different things that you're probably not yet aware of when it comes to gaming and how games are developed. So there is a game that I followed a tutorial to make a long time ago. It's called an ability system game mode. It's just a small project, but it's a project that actually takes somewhere around 13 hours worth of lectures, probably more if you try to follow it yourself. You can go on Udemy. You can actually follow and download the course. You can download Unreal Engine for free, and you can work on the course and eventually build this small, tiny little game system. It will give you a good appreciation for video games. Now, if you take this challenge, I promise you, you will never see gaming the same way again. In fact, you will unsubscribe from almost everybody that talks about video games just because now you see the process and you can actually come to a whole different understanding. There is not a person that can tell me that they will be the same after seeing how it all works. In fact, I did this with a good friend of mine. He's making his own game right now. And he and I, when we talk about video games, we're talking on a whole different level because we've just happened to see how much of a terrible enterprise it is ever trying to make a video game. Another thing, too, is even though we talk about this whole conversation surrounding making our games and looking at how we can actually change the landscape of gaming, we also kind of have to say, okay, well, is it still possible for people to be able to, crowdsource new video games and be able to be successful in doing it? The answer to that is very much so. In fact, I think it's actually much more probable than it was, especially from the comparisons that we can set with video game studios and developers that actually started back in the day. Now, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League gives a lot of people sleepless nights because, for the most part, all they see when they look at this game is Anthem. But let me throw something that is very interesting about Anthem. You see, the developers Anthem, the studio itself, BioWare, was a studio that was actually started by some really passionate gamers. In fact, here's the Wikipedia page. It says BioWare is a Canadian video game developer based in Edmonton, Alberta. It was founded in 1995 by newly graduated medical doctors Ray Muzyka, I don't know how you say this name, Greg Zishuk, I don't know how you say, I hope I'm saying it properly, and Augustine Yip, alongside Trent Oster, Brant Oster, forgive me about these names, and Marcel Zishuk, I think that's how you say it. Since 2007, the company has been owned by American publisher Electronic Arts. So these gentlemen graduated from medical school. I think they were probably already working as doctors, and then they went ahead to save up some money. I think if you go ahead and you read the foundation of the game, it says to make their first game, they pulled their resources, which resulted in a capital of $100,000, and the company was incorporated in February 1st, 1995, even though it formally launched in May, 22nd May of that same year. And that's how they started their own company. Today, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need $100,000. Back then, they probably felt that they needed that much money, but this is not the case anymore. Today, for some divine reason, someone has actually decided that they will make accessibility to being able to make video games as easy and as free as possible. In fact, I would almost argue that God sent Tim Sweeney to make sure that gamers could actually make games whenever they feel like making freaking games. The dude is a legend. This guy took everything that we know about gaming, everything that we can think, bundled it up into Unreal Engine, providing one of the most powerful engines in the world for free. I have Unreal Engine 5 and a version of Unreal Engine 4 here on my computer. In fact, I can get access to any of the Unreal Engine versions that I want, Unreal Engine 4 versions that I want, if that's something that, I'm looking forward to. And look at all of them here, even from one of the first few Unreal Engine, builds, and I can go back and I can make video games by myself. I have a library that is full of free assets, some that I buy for cheap, sounds, animations, models, all of that stuff. And it's sitting right here. And I did not spend $100,000. Where am I going to find $100,000 to spend? Yet those guys that started BioWare, I can guarantee you that the $100,000 basically bought them way less technology than we can afford today for a few $100s. Are you kidding me? Do you want to tell me that those guys had technology that was as close to, say, a CPU that's running, maybe the Ryzen systems of today that you can buy very cheap? Or you can buy, say, maybe even the 20 to 30 series GPUs that are more than sufficient to build these games? That's impossible. You can't make that comparison. And so when I see gamers on, the internet talking about how, passion in gaming is gone, which is something that I made my last video on based on this tweet, I can't help but say, if we gamers are passionate about these video games, I think we need to get up and start to make a move to develop these games ourselves. And I also want to shout out people who are doing the work. This is not something that, people are sleeping on. No, there are many developers out there, solo devs that are coming back from work every night, that are putting in the sweat and the blood. There are people that are making prototypes back and forth, learning how these systems work and getting the job done. And nowhere will these people come out with the conclusion that a game developer is incompetent because a game developer did not make a game that resonated with them or appealed to them. You see, Gotham Knights, in my opinion, is one of the better superhero games that have been made. Anyone who says otherwise, you'd have to see me in the whole depiction of how video games are made. Like you and I, we're going to have to sit down and talk mechanics. And you're going to explain to me why you think from all directions, why you think this game isn't good. Forget what the big YouTubers are saying. The big YouTubers, all they're good for is making videos. They don't make video games. They don't dabble into the systems. And that's all it is that they want to do. If they really did make video games or they actually learned about them, their whole opinion will be so much different. And I think this is why I decided I'm just going to go on pretty much DEF CON until the whole gaming world understands what gaming really is and can be about. And I think developers themselves don't really help. Well, it's not their fault. They're very busy. They have to deal with all of this stuff in developing a whole video game. They spend 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years on one project. So they can't really do a lot of education when it comes down to it. But in today's world, education is free. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Udemy, you can go to all these other places, and you can get educated for very minimal amounts of money. And not only are these tools that I just showed you with a game engine free, there are other tools that are also free, 3D modeling tools. even through Unreal Engine, there are things that like world building, procedural generated world building software like Houdini, where you can get some of it for free if you're in the Epic Games ecosystem. There are assets that you can use like quick scans, mega scans. These are things that are available to big, that used to be available only to big industry. Now they're right here sitting at the fingertips of anyone that actually has just a minimum gaming PC, by the way. So I think gaming can change. I think the passion can be infused into gaming, but it's us gamers that are going to get the job done, especially today that we have all this stuff on our fingertips. If we're not taking the time to actually jump in there and make these little mini games and try to start to do really cool stuff, I strongly believe that, we're going to just be at the mercy of a lot of these corporations, and they're going to continue to do their best to continue to farm dollars. And for those of you who think maybe there are still big corporate studios out there that still do, in a sense, maybe care about gamers or whatever you think it may be, I just want to say to you that you're dreaming. You see, these so-called games that you think care about gamers that are being backed by big corporations, and I know some of you are going to cite Spider-Man, you don't understand how the business of Sony works. Spider-Man is just one of those games that's going to sell consoles. Jim Ryan doesn't care about you. That's why he mentioned, I don't care about a new Call of Duty deal. I just want to block your merger. A merger that will be beneficial to gamers. Jim Ryan is sitting there going like, I do not want this to happen. That is not somebody that cares about gamers. And I've always known this. I just wanted to maybe hope that one day his snake skin will probably show. And yes, there it is. It's showing up. And so if you're thinking that Sony is going to be there for you to make you your beautiful, pretty little games very soon, you better think again. Very soon, they're going to pivot heavily into the more profitable niches, and that's what they're going to be doing. Until gamers take this stuff into their hands, for the most part, we're not going to see a change in the industry. A lot of the veterans that kind of started off this stuff, they're already leaving. They're retiring. Stephen Hill, he's probably going to be sitting on the beach somewhere, sipping on some, I don't know, Mai Tais or whatever it is pretty soon. And you're not going to have people that are, there all the time. I love the way Brian Inter is able to, continue to control a lot of stuff with the Spider-Man and the Wolverine games. But these are few and far between, especially with the time for development, which it takes about 6 or 7 or 8 years. I don't think it's likely for these companies to want to continue this model, especially when these games are so expensive to make because they have to spend all the money. We, in the outside world, we can just crowdsource a lot of this stuff. We don't really need all of that pizzazz that they have to deal with. And so this is just my video, maybe one of many or one of a few. But hey, I'll be in the lab, man. I know I'm making this video, but I can't say much now, but I'm cooking. So talk to y'all soon. Let me cook. Peace out.